Waiting on us, you backing up.
Oh, I guess we're backing up. Are you ready?
I thought we'd start.
Ready. You ready?
Here
Everybody ready?
All right.
Here we go.
Wait.
.357 Productions is proud to present the Masonian, a monthly podcast for Freemasons with a focus on the Grand Jurisdiction of North Carolina. While not an official function of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, we operate with the full endorsement of Grand Master Bryant Webster. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the participants and in no way reflect the opinions of the Grand Lodge of North Carolina, its members, or any appendant bodies. 357 Productions is not on any of the music. As always, we wish we did. We may not be here.
Righto.
So tonight we're really excited. We've got Jonathan Underwood, Senior Warden of State College Lodge under dispensation and Assistant to the Grand Secretary. And we just call him Assistant Grand. That's how he rolls.
I think we've called him on everything down here. We've called him the Deputy Grand, the Deputy Secretary, the Undersecretary, I don't know. We've called him everything. So
your title has come up a lot in
This is the official title, right?
It's really what you all want to call me. You are the Grand Lodge.
We are. So what is the official title? Well, Riley just said it. What was it?
In true tradition, Assistant to the Grand Secretary.
The Assistant to the Grand Secretary. Well, we got to know you way before you were,
rock
famous.
star.
Yeah, before you were a rock star. Just when you were plain old Jonathan working over.
Back when he was working the bar scene. Yeah.
That's right.
It is good to be back in the URAs. Right across the river.
Right across the river. So when we first got to know Jonathan, we're from Blackmore Lodge, which is in Mount Gilead. And across the river is a town called Albemarle, North Carolina. And when we first met Jonathan, he was what exactly was your title over there?
Where?
In Albemarle.
Oh, I was director of the Stanley County Museum.
Director of the Stanley County Museum. So, when I think of Jonathan, I always think of him as a historian first, because that's the way that we met him. I'm not exactly sure the first time we met, but I'm sure that it was in conjunction with Captain Campbell, probably doing something with history and with the lodge. You probably came to do a program for us. Is probably
he showed up at the museum actually on a tour with I think the Montgomery County Historical Society.
There you go.
And we found out we were brothers.
Yeah.
And I think I came to Blackmore shortly thereafter.
Yeah, and so it transpired that we got to be friends with Jonathan, and he came and did quite a few programs for Blackmore because he only lived like 20 minutes away, right? And then we kind of got to be buddies, and so we see Jonathan all the time.
Start going places. We went on field trips together.
Went on field trips together. I'd go over there and sit around in his office and shoot the breeze when I didn't have something going on at work. I mean, I could go once a month or so. Anyway, he probably more than that. I mean, we were together a lot. We did things socially together with our families. So when he was just plain old Jonathan, he was our buddy. He's still our buddy, but now he's like somebody really important.
He is. No, you really are.
So anyway, but I always think of Jonathan. When I think of Jonathan, I always think of Jonathan as a historian. Before I think about him as a grand muckety undersecretary, assistant.
I'm just a hired help.
I understand.
That's it.
Yeah, you're very modest. But anyway, we're going to talk a fair amount about history tonight, because even though Jonathan's title is the assistant to the secretary, I think a lot of what you do, Jonathan, at the Grand Lodge, at least the things that you and I talk about, have to do with, you're almost a historian de facto, and a lot of things have to do with preserving our history, which is vitally important as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, so that was back in the good old days, and then the Grand Lodge stole him away and whisked him off to state capitol, and he has graciously come over here from the state capitol today all the way out here to Montgomery County just to shoot this podcast with us. And Jonathan, we really appreciate it. We appreciate you making the journey.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
Jonathan's one of those guys that has like an insane schedule. So we literally booked this thing back in February or something. That had to book it all the way out to June to be able to get a date. But we really appreciate you coming. Jonathan, why don't we start? I've got a long list of things here to talk about, but I think why don't you just start by introducing us to the Grand Secretary's office and the things that they do, the people that work there, the functions that they have, and then let's talk about what the Grand Secretary's office has to offer to the regular Masons.
Sure. So, first off, if you haven't been, you need to come to the Grand Lodge office in Raleigh. we love to have visitors. We love to show you around, show you what we do. There's 5 of us, and for many years, I think there's only been about 5 people in the office. Maybe back in the 30s, 40s, I think they got up to 7 maybe. But there's 5 of us, the Grand Secretary, myself, and then the ladies, as they are affectionately known, that really and truly run the fraternity. That we would truly be lost without them if you haven't come by to meet Cornelia, it's pronounced Kenia Doherty, Vicki Lamb, and our newest addition, Haley Mall. Many of you may remember April Charlton. We unfortunately lost her. We hate that. She's gone out to Colorado now, but we have Haley there.
All right, so let's talk about the ladies a little bit. What do they do? What are their duties?
So the biggest thing about the office is everybody knows everybody else's job, at least in theory. Again, ladies know more about what I do than I know what they do. Haley handles all petitions that come in. Every time you send a petition up at Grand Lodge, anytime you send up an application for affiliation, she usually passes those on to Kenia. She handles those. But Haley takes care of all petitions and correspondence. Takes care of all awards that are shipped out from other states to your lodge, and runs all the background checks. So she is constantly moving mounds of paper from one end of her desk to the other, and then putting them in envelopes and sending them out. She is a true correspondent for the Grand Lodge.
And a historian by trade, I understand.
Yeah, graduate of the public history program at NC State. Well, shout out to the wolf back there.
Is that the program you went to? No, you were a museum degree, weren't you?
It was strange. I did European history at NC State, British history.
But she does what now? What is it that her
She
degree
does
said?
public history, so museums, archives, just overview of managing historic resources.
Like Kepley.
Yes, very much like Aaron Kepley, Brother Kepley.
Hey, let's just take a side course right quick. Give a shout out to Aaron and what he's doing now.
Aaron is wonderful. I first met him in Stanley County when I was at the museum there, and he came down as an intern from Pfeiffer University. He was in the history program, and moved on to bigger and better. Is now the director of the Rowan County Museum.
Good for him.
And well deserved, and will do an excellent job. Is doing an excellent job.
And a brother from what lodge?
Member of Albemarle.
Oh.
I might have had.
Oh, Faulkner Lodge.
I may have.
I didn't realize that.
Oh. All right. You can edit this out.
Yeah, no. We love the Faulkners.
Yeah. I may have had something to. I may have mentioned that I was a member there. Brought him over.
Good. Well, good. Well, we're really happy for Aaron. He's our buddy.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen him in a while, but he's a really good dude. So I'm really happy for him that he got that job. That's a big step up for him, and he'll be great at it. I know he will.
Already is. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the girls.
Who did I cover? Haley.
Yeah, talk about Haley.
Haley's
new.
And then Haley's kind of my partner in crime as far as is curating the things of the Grand Lodge. We plunder the basement, trying to preserve records. We're usually filing something, polishing old artifacts we find. We're going through the stuff. So that's been a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, Walt's continuously telling us we've got too much junk on our desks. Anyway.
Hey, yeah, like Indiana Jones.
Exactly. There's always something fun to see.
Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, just got laying around.
Well, we do
Got
have
our feet
one,
resting up on it.
Got a sandwich half eaten up.
You just can't stare into it.
All right, what's Cornelia do?
So Kenia.
Cornelia.
So Kenia handles all applications for affiliations, all other kinds of paperwork, bylaws, revisions, bylaw revisions, foreign correspondence. She is Walt's assistant, so any kind of administrative tasks that he may have, she assists with that. And Cornelia really, she just knows everything there. I mean, she has a handle on it. We'd be lost without her.
Good. And Vicki?
Vicki handles all our financial information. So anytime you have a question on lodge finances, where your investments are, or have you invested with the foundation, she's also the liaison to the foundation, North Carolina Masonic Foundation. She makes sure all the money is put where it's supposed to be put, makes the deposits, and really just fields a remarkable amount of questions about finances. In fact, I think I was supposed to hook you up with her. Yeah, sorry about that. We'll handle that on the checking account later.
Good. So she's our money lady.
Yes, exactly.
All right. And then there's you.
Right.
And then there's Walt.
Right.
All right. And then there's Rick Carter that still does the paper. Rick's like a part-time guy.
Rick was assistant to the Grand Secretary for, I think this would, I think 18 years, I think from 96 on. Prior to that though, and I wish I knew the dates, I think it's back into the late 80s, he was editor of North Carolina Mason. So the assistant for many years has always worn two hats. Rick was editor of the paper and also assistant. His predecessor was editor of the paper and was also assistant, Reynolds Davenport. Prior to that, you had Pete Dudley, who became Grand Secretary. Pete handled finances and was also assistant to the Grand Secretary. So in that tradition, I'm historian, curator, but first assistant to the Grand Secretary.
Well, good. Well, I'm really glad that they did that. You know, there were a few years back when they were, increasing the per capita. I know you caught a little grief at the annual communication, but people just didn't understand. I mean, where that basement came from, which was a piles of stuff. It's been maybe 6 months or 9 months since I've been up there, but it has transformed incredibly since you've been there. And I know that you're continuing to work on it all the time. And so, the amateur historian in me just not only appreciates you doing it, but I'm happy for the Masons in North Carolina that their stuff is getting organized. What kind of treasures have you found down there?
Oh, Lord.
Just talk about some of the cooler stuff you found.
Okay, so the Holy Grail moment. This was last year. This was 2015. So again, when the Grand Lodge moved from its building downtown, in downtown Raleigh, moved out to what was then the cow pasture on Highway 70, they went from a 7-story building to a 2-story building. So they had to box up a lot. Paintings, artwork, artifacts, badges, papers, letters, books, I mean, you name it. There was a tremendous amount of rugs, furniture, I mean, just a tremendous amount of things went into storage over at the Raleigh Bonded Warehouse. The original, I think what was like I said, the Holy Grail moment was pulling out some of those boxes of the old Grand Secretaries. We were going to interview the cat one.
That's for Jennifer Handy. She told me to pick the cat up.
Yeah, the Underwood Cat Rescue Mission in Fuquay, North Carolina. So anyway, all of this got brought back over when Raleigh Bonded Warehouse. I think they went out of business in 2010, somewhere along there. So all that stuff had to go somewhere, had to come back to the office. And it was one of those, it was like, all right, stick it in the basement, we'll get to it when we get to it. And it sat down there. Of course, it sat at Raleigh Bonded Warehouse since about 1948. So 60, pushing 70 years, this stuff had been tucked away. Pull out this old pasteboard box, not cardboard, it was pasteboard. And you have all these shucks of papers coming out, and they're all handwritten, they're all tied up in twine. And realizing that these were tied up probably shortly after they had been written, shortly after the year they went with. They're all sorted by year. It's all the Grand Secretary's papers and correspondence. Well, I get down in there and pull these out, and kind of, first thing to do is what's the oldest thing we're going to find in here? And lo and behold, there's a shuck of papers about an inch thick with 1787 written across the top of it.
Wow.
So I pull that out and I have to run that upstairs, and I'm sitting there with a pair of scissors ready to cut the twine off of it, and this shows you how much I think the wall clapped. He was out at the moment. I can't remember where it was. It seems like he was at a meeting. I thought, I can't open this without him here. So anyway, waited patiently through lunch for him to get back, and again had the papers of Samuel Johnston and Richard Caswell and William Richardson Davy just sitting in front of you in this old pile tied up. He came in and he said, "Thank you for waiting." He said, "You go in and clip it. That way it won't be my fault if you hit a piece of paper."
Sounds just like Walt.
But just to pull out, pull out all these papers, and it's the original bylaws, handwritten by Richard Caswell at Hillsborough in 1787. All this correspondence from the different lodges, the 7 or 8 lodges at the time that were coming together, down from Union Lodge, which became Phoenix, at Edenton, or Unanimity number 7. Some things from, we won't put numbers with 1, 2, or 3, but the lodges of St. John.
None of them are here to start an argument tonight.
But they're listening, and that's close enough. Yeah. So, all these petitions to agree to join a Grand, or to form a Grand Lodge, just flipping through these and pulling them apart and reading who's written all of it. That was truly the Indiana Jones moment. We lifting the top of the ark up a little bit.
That's awesome. So what did you do with them?
Well, after we sat there and read them for about 2 hours, They had been folded up. They were probably tied up and put away about 1870. They had not seen the light of day. Even J. Ray Shute, famous Masonic historian, wrote quite a bit of information in the old Nocolor, North Carolina Lodge of Research volumes.
Oh, we're going to talk about all that in a little bit.
Okay, well, that's so we think they were put away even before he had seen them, and that they truly had just been boxed up for decades. So they'd been put away for a while, but pulled them out, unfolded them very carefully, put them into folders, tucked them away, and we have this really good relationship with the University of North Carolina and the Digital Heritage Center housed in Wilson Library. And that was one of the first batches of material we sent over to be digitized. You can't preserve the paper. I mean, paper eventually will just rot away, but you can, what's the next best way to preserve it? So get a good digital scan. And then again, like so much of what we're trying to do, get that scan, get put up, let people have access to it. So
now, with your, how did it, when you guys digitized it, how did it look? Because I know from some of the stuff that you did for our lodge, some of it was kind of hit or miss, depending on how well it was preserved, I'm guessing.
Right.
So how did that come out?
Well, I did a lot of your preservation. So while I did my best, UNC has a little more money.
Understand?
No, we completely get it.
They have some just remarkable equipment in that facility, and they're able to pull out. They're one of those, you've got a letter you think's a blank sheet of paper, and they'll put a contrast to it, and you'll realize it's a full
Wow.
letter both sides.
Wow. Because I know with some of the stuff that you did for our book, it was, some of the light writing, it kind of fades out just a little bit. But
Yeah.
I understand.
So with the stuff that you're finding down there, are you keeping that stuff in house and just letting them digitize it, UNC, or are you putting it in the?
No, we keep it at the Grand Lodge. The records of defunct lodges have gone. Several years ago, there was a large collection from the Grand Lodge that went over to UNC, and that was defunct lodge records. There's a few things that I think trickled in there, old returns from lodges. Those we have copies of in the office anyway, but the records in the Southern Historical Collection at UNC are defunct lodge records. So everything we're finding, especially that pertains to the Grand Lodge, we keep in-house. We have the 3 vaults in the basement are climate controlled, and we've got a good place for them.
So so what are you doing with blue lodges that have records? Or like ours went to the Southern Historical Collection.
Right.
And they're in a box over there.
Right. Blackmer's are actually at Grand Lodge. I part of them. I think your really old records are over at UNC. But you all had copies, and the copies are in the Grand Lodge. You had copies that were made at the same time.
Yeah, some of it. But our records from 1850. Anyway, so if a blue lodge is sitting on records out there, if they bring them to you, are they more likely to go to the Southern Historical Collection if they're still an active lodge, or are you going to keep them in Grand Lodge?
No, we keep them in Grand Lodge.
So I live in fear every day that I'm going to hear that some really old lodge burned down or had a flood, and that their records were lost from 100, 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
So if anybody is listening to this program, any of the 12 of you out there have old records in your lodge, please find some way to get a copy made of those, and Jonathan is your man to help you out. If you want to actually send the records, you can send them. If you want to just copy them and send them back.
Right, and we've done this for several lodges. We're happy to take them, but be it known, they are the lodge's records, and if they ever want them, they can deposit them at the Grand Lodge for safekeeping, but if they ever want them back, they belong to that lodge, and they'll go back to that lodge. So again, that's why we don't transfer anything over to UNC unless it's defunct, and there's the long-term storage that's going to be better suited over there. But any lodge that is fearing some sort of, I don't know where the lodge could be, bottom of a mountain, could be an avalanche, hurricane, fire, whatever disaster you fear.
Could be a vandalism.
True, exactly.
Yeah.
And for those lodges that are listening, you can do the same thing that you did for us. For a nominal fee, you can digitize those records.
If you'll let us scan them, or if we can scan them, we'll take care of it. And
but then potentially make a book. For a nominal fee, make a book, that's what I'm saying.
We can get that set up, yes.
And for those people who are listening, our lodge, Blackmore Lodge, we had Jonathan do that with Captain Campbell, and they made 2 books, and they're really neat. Have all the letters, correspondence, the minutes, everything really cool. Jonathan did a great job helping with that and putting it together, and you have a nice hardback book to keep.
Yep, and it was cheap.
Was
they
cheap.
sent them to Lulu, and it was
Yeah, we make the scans, printed in a
$20,
book, and it was $25 a book.
so every member can have
Right.
a record of them,
Yeah,
and
hardback
they're
book.
preserved. Not to mention all your regalia and all your old stuff. If you just, I mean, that stuff's important, but it's at risk if it's sitting around in some Blue Lodge.
Potentially. I mean,
It's more at risk than it is sitting at Grand Lodge or at the Southern Historical Collection.
probably, but too, you know, some of it's about you saying, you know, your jewels or furniture or things like that. You know, those I worry about them too, but that gives so much identity to a lodge. I mean, that they can identify with those materials. But yes, records, paper inherently breaks down.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to help you with that. But
I know you talk about this a fair amount. I talk about it every chance I get when it comes up, and I know you probably do too. But has there been any thoughts to making some sort of sustained marketing campaign to try and get lodges to turn their records in, or safe? Let's not even say turn them in. Let's just say safeguard them, to protect them, to preserve them for history.
Or a form of like maybe a Masonic museum. I mean, I know we've got one at the home, and I know there's kind of a semi one there at Grand Lodge.
right.
And Steve Lynch's.
And Lynch Lodge.
We've talked a little bit about that, and this is only my second year or two at the Grand Lodge. We're slowly moving into ideas on how to do that, because too, we don't want to become inundated that it looks like we're just throwing them into the basement. So we're trying to be very systematic on, you know, we try to talk to a lodge, ask them, you know, what are your problems? You know, is your roof okay? Is your building secure? You know, what kind of problems are you facing? Some of the old records, you know, I'll jump at 18th century records really quickly. Those would be good to at least get a copy of. But trying to form some sort of queue to work through, to have some sort of plan to take care of these in an order. But you know, I mean, if State College, which I hope is number 770, if it wants its first year of records stored at Grand Lodge, you know, we'll entertain that and talk to them. That's probably a pure digitization right there, because I think our records are digital. Well, that's another point. We've actually, you know, if your records are digital, if you've got them in some sort of electronic format, we can save those on our server too, and that'll be double and triple backed up. If you've already got an electronic version and want to send us those, we'll be glad to house that too. So we're working through all the details on how to preserve these things. It's an interesting process.
I think we're still ink and quill, aren't we?
Yeah. You know, it's the romantic in me, I guess, that I love looking back at the old records, and you see the beautiful handwriting that those guys had, and they took a lot of pains with their records. I hear a lot of times, you know, I go to a lot of lodges, listen to a lot of secretaries read the minutes, and you know, a lot of times it sounds something like this. Riley done a program on, you know, the Jacob and Boaz, and it was good. That's it. I mean, couldn't we throw a couple of sentences in there to kind of
Maybe a synopsis,
give
yeah.
a little better explanation?
I remember when Jonathan came to our lodge and we found that box
Oh yeah.
underneath the steps.
Which is still sitting there, by the way.
It's still in the closet there. Isn't
And
it?
we
Still
started
there.
pulling out when they had a picnic and had ordered all the food from the hardware store and all that stuff. It was really cool.
Boxes of cigars.
Yeah, boxes of cigars. It was really neat.
Oh really?
Yeah, it was in
Yeah,
that
got
day
a
that we were
cigar.
looking at it. From the hardware, they had ordered all their food
Oh, that's right.
and
That's
the cigars
Right.
and everything.
I think we should bring back cigar smoking and scotch drinking in the lodge. What do you think? Well, don't answer that. What do you
Yeah.
think, Riley? Riley, what do you think about that?
I think that would be great.
Yeah, we'll talk about committees a little bit too, I'm sure.
I may stay away from that one. We stirred that up enough last time. All right. So we talked about, so you can visit the Grand Lodge building
Yes.
in Raleigh. Anytime, drop in, but probably best to make an appointment if you want to see the basement.
If you want, yeah, if you'd like to do some research, give us a heads up. But even then, come on by. I mean, we're there. We're there normal business hours during the week. Yeah, again, tell us you're coming if you can, just to make sure someone can.
Yeah, and just say a lodge or a group of brothers said, hey, we just want to get together and have an outing. And would they go through you to try to set up kind of a small tour? Or?
Yeah, just call the office. office, and we all kind of cover for each other. One of us will figure it out, put it on the other's calendar.
So for the people that have, we've been there so many times, and I mean, you assume that everybody knows what's there, but more or less, so it's a building. There's a basement and a second floor, and Dr. Brantley is one of my heroes, but he has this wonderful program on this building. It's kind of a steel and glass structure that doesn't have near the character, I don't think, that a lot of people like. But I understand that since they opened the windows in the back, there's a lot more light. There is a beautiful mural done by
Alan Cox,
who's the same guy that did.
He did the George Washington Masonic Memorial in Alexandria. Also finished out the National Capitol.
Yes. So really famous dude, really cool murals. Got like all our North Carolina Masonic heroes on it, and that's really worth going to see. And then the stuff in the basement. Again, used to be, when I became a Mason, was just a junk hole, but now, I mean, it's really nice to go down there. It's not set up like a museum necessarily, but Jonathan will walk you through, and you can see some really cool old books and lots of history stuff. So, not to mention you can meet all the staff up there, and the staff is there to help all of our brothers, right?
Exactly.
And if you're an incoming member for Wilkerson College's new class, you'll get a tour.
Yeah, so there were lots of guys that have been masters of their lodge and DDGMs and DDGLs and muckety mucks and masonry that had never been to the Children's Home, Whitestone, or Grand Lodge. So they started a few years ago having Wilkerson College meet at the 3 different entities so that those incoming masters could see those places, and now they're doing it with the DDGMs and DDGLs.
Correct.
Yep, so everybody can see it, and everybody ought to see all 3 of those. Those are your North Carolina treasures,
right? And
they belong to you, and you ought to go see them.
Especially the 2 homes. I mean, we want you at the office. Please come and see how see the nitty gritty of the paperwork going through. But to see the homes is really eye opening. It really gives you a definition of who we are and what we can do. And I'm glad we instituted that program.
So, some other things that I know that you do, and I'm going to get you to tell me some things that I don't know that y'all do.
Okay.
One is if you want to check out a Mason, especially like a deceased Mason, your grandpa, some guy in your family tree, some friend's guy that died, then you can call up there, and that must all be digitized because they can tell you pretty quick.
We're getting there. It's partially digitized, but we have a card file, good old card file, like a library card file. That is 6 filing cabinets wide. Excuse me, 6, 7, 8. 8 filing cabinets to check. But it's every Mason, as far as we know, that has ever been a Mason in North Carolina. Sometime in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, we began keeping these note cards on membership. Went back to the old returns, copied down the name, initiation, passing, raising date. Some of the later ones have some. When I say genealogical information, sometimes, usually after 1940, it'll list the parents and also the spouse. Give you a little bit of information. Well, we've got those broken up into Masons that have passed, Masons that have disappeared for one reason or another. That's the NPD, the expelled and disappeared pile. And then we have another one of all those guys that were Masons at the time we got our new electronic database. So we cross-reference everything. Everything has been digitized, and if you're not familiar with the, are you familiar with the Card Turk program?
Well, I used to see emails about it, but I haven't recently.
I think we need to put
tell everybody what it is.
So Card Turk, a few years ago, all the cards were digitized, and Card Turk is this program set up through Maury, which is our database system, where you go in, it'll throw a card up on, you sign in, create an account, it'll throw a card up on the screen, and you'll transcribe it, and that is a huge help to us. It's crowd surfing to have all the information input into an electronic database that we can search. So I think we got through the first 100,000 cards. I think we got about another 125, 150,000 more to go, but we got all of the members that we could track, that we knew what happened to them. All of those records have been completed. So again, the next steps, moving on to the next 5 days of files and encouraging the members to jump on there and help transcribe them, and then we're going to have that database inputted into Maury so we can just search it from our computers. But
you're using volunteers to do this?
Yep.
So if anybody happens to be listening and wants to volunteer to do some data entry?
It's a lot of fun, and it's...
It is.
Not just for nerds like me, but when you're looking through these records,
Woo!
Yeah, my wife just got a real big laugh right now. Yeah, honey. But you're flipping through these cards, you're transcribing these names, and you see, John Q. Smith, initiation, passing, and raising date are all 1862, January 1862, and then you see death date, July 2nd, 1863. Well, he died at Gettysburg. I mean, you get that relationship back to these members. There's some we've gotten that, their death date's December 7th, 1941. Wow. And they were killed somewhere at Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
You see some, that some of the old records, this guy was initiated, July 4th, 1776. He didn't know what was going on, but that day, I mean, to have that association with that, be able to go back and kind of vicariously live that history through that brother's records. It's really a lot of fun to see what comes up through those records. And every once in a while you'll hit a relative too.
Very cool. So all they got to do is call. If you want to know something about somebody, call them up and they'll help you out. You guys field questions on things like code interpretation?
Yes.
That's if you don't stuck, you don't know what to do, money issues, you don't know how to handle some money.
Right.
You can always call and they'll either know or direct you to the right people, right?
Exactly. We're there for all your questions. Any question, and anything from helping to arrange funerals. We get code questions, code interpretation, and sometimes if we don't know, we'll pass it to the code commission, we'll pass it to jurisprudence, we'll pass it to the board of custodians. We'll figure out the answer for you. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you just walk into Walt's office. Here it is. This is it. But anything you can think of that we can help you with, we're there for you.
Sure is easier to ask a question up front than it is to fix a problem on the tail end.
We prefer that.
You guys have books up there that you can buy, your OSW, box of manuals, funeral manuals? Anytime
you need any materials. Usually secretaries place these orders, but they don't have to be. The secretary is a good one to be in contact with if you're not coming to Raleigh and you want to make an order. They've got all the information, but yeah, if you want to order your OSW, your Bonson funeral manual, if you want any of the pamphlets we give out for the degrees, if you want your membership certificate, we field all those, put in the orders, get you set up on payment, take care of it.
You mentioned Maury several times. Tell us, just a little, for the guys that don't know, a little bit about Maury.
So Maury is a Masonic membership database that we've been using since, I think we've been using it a decade now. It's this wonderful system for lodge secretaries. I think that confuses some folks sometimes, but it's specifically for lodge secretaries to maintain the records of the lodge, and you can do so many different things with it. It's mainly for the inputting of information on the member. But anything you can think of, your initiation, passing, raising date, parents, spouse, we keep deceased records. You can input obituaries for members. You can put in a photograph. I mean, it's a membership database. So we use that heavily daily, maintain the records of the Grand Lodge.
But there are other people that have access to it besides just secretaries.
There are usually Grand Line officers and district deputies. They're looking to keep up with members, who the certified lecturers are. All kinds of information that you could input into a system, it goes into that and used for contact information, looking up records.
So it's very useful. Can I have access to that?
Well, I'll get you in touch with Walt.
Oh, man. I was hoping I'd get you.
Game over.
Thought I'd sneak it in there. You wasn't paying attention. We were on a roll. Sneak it right in there. No. Okay.
We try, and going into that, a lot of folks would like access to it, and because it is people's personal information. I mean, there's nothing in there that's not public record, typically, other than the Masonic record, but we try to keep a controlled access as far as the inputting of the data. If you need anything, call us. We'll be glad to share it, but I'll talk to Walt for you. I'll intervene. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, just hold off. I mean, wait for the opportune minute.
The moment
Johnny
of
Depp would
weakness.
say. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the State College Lodge.
Oh, well, thank you. So
Under dispensation.
Under dispensation. So State College, I'm senior warden of State College Lodge. Also, I think you put in a plug, I'm a proud past junior warden of Albemarle Lodge 703, but moved to Raleigh. The drive back to Albemarle was a little bit long. So we received a dispensation a year ago, June 17th, 2015, received a dispensation from Grandmaster Caldwell. And it was particularly Matt Robbins, Adam Cloninger, shout out to those guys. These
Matt's
young
the dude
men,
who talked about the tower all the time.
yes, Matt is the young man that has organized to have the bells put in the bell tower at NC State. But these guys all went to school together, knew each other, and had always talked about forming a lodge at NC State. And not a Wolfpack lodge, not a sports affinity lodge. You know, it was to be somewhat academic, the camaraderie of being in a university of learning, of light, really relating it back to the educational experience. And when I moved to Raleigh, became very interested in it. Those guys still had a passion for it and just kind of helped them run to get it established. But like I said, got a dispensation a year ago. We've done some wonderful work. Professor Dr. Michael Brantley is our master. He's wonderful. Had a great year. We focus on
Certified
education.
lecturer too.
Yeah, he's everything. Past grand historian for many years. Brantley's just remarkable.
He is
We
a
could
treasure.
gush about him for a while. Yeah, he is a treasure with Colin
I
Mason.
would love to get him on this show sometime. We need to interview him, Brad.
That'd be a fun one.
Yeah, we need to
We'll
arrange
work
that.
on that. We could do that. Yeah.
Steve Burrell's in that lodge.
Yes, Steve Burrell, great musician, historian from Durham. It's a fun group. You know, we're not too serious, but we have a good time. We enjoy our masonry. We've completed our degrees. Had our first degree. Had our first member finished in May, and looking forward. Hope, you know. Again, I know who does the paperwork, but I think
right.
we're going to get a charter in
You
September.
probably can pull some strings. So tell us where the lodge is at, in case somebody would like to come visit.
No, I'll have to, okay. So the best way to describe it is it's 2 doors down from Mitch's Tavern on Hillsborough Street. I can't remember the street number.
There you go.
There you go. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. We met above Old McDade's. Unfortunately, McDade's closed, but there was a dining room below the lodge. You came outside, went around the corner, went up the staircase, and of course the back side of the staircase went up through the dining room and came up to the lodge room. It's the Hillsborough Street Community Service Corporation rents us the room, and we've had a real good relationship with them. And like I said, had a really good time with it. It's a fun place to be.
I'm glad. I would love to come visit
Please
sometime.
do.
We were gonna have one of the restorations lectures there, but that didn't work out. Maybe
Well,
next time.
Our room's smaller than the tractor
The hell was that?
That was my fault. Forgot to turn the pager off.
Have you got a fire call?
I don't know.
Whew. All right.
I thought Burl was doing something. I was like, what is that?
Well, I thought it was a crowd noise. I thought everybody was cheering Jonathan. State College.
I thought he had sound effects. I was like, man, he made some sound effects. That's cool.
Applause. So, not to be outdone, Lux Libertas, tell us a little bit about them.
What's that? No. So Lux Libertas, you know, there's this development in masonry for these affinity lodges, and you know, Sophia, Veritas, you got the Knights of Solomon, we have State College. Now Lux Libertas has formed at the University of North Carolina, had an awesome inauguration at the DiPhi, Dialectic and Philanthropic Hall on campus in New West, which was built, I think, in the 1830s or 40s, so 150, 60, 70 years old, but New West. Very similar scope and mind to State, really there to celebrate the traditions and history of UNC, and of course, you know, that is the hallmark and legacy, one of the great hallmarks and legacy of our Grand Lodges that we and the Grandmaster William Davey established that university, laid the cornerstone in 1793. The meeting on campus, probably going to meet, I think they're going to meet over in Hillsborough at Eagle Lodge also, but had their inauguration in New West. Like I said, celebrating those traditions, remembering William Richardson Davey and all his contributions to North Carolina Masonry. Had a great turnout, and again, I think that's just going to be a fantastic lodge. It's going to be a lot of fun.
William, you're going to hear a lot of Davey next year. Everybody doesn't know anything about William Richardson Davey. Now, you will by this time next year.
And it was...
And rightly so. He's one of our North Carolina heroes, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
And
So
there's some will think this is sacrilege too, but I mean, the university became the university system of which NC State's a part of. I think I can hear the hissing through next week's broadcast, but anyway, Again, just that tradition of bringing light and education to the people. It's very exciting.
Well, it was a novel idea at the time,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
A
completely new.
public university.
Right. Never been done before.
I mean, common people didn't get to go.
Right.
Good stuff. All right, so do you think this trend is going to continue about colleges? Do you think more college campuses will have
I think
lodges
it may.
pop up?
I
Have
think
you
it
heard any
may.
rumors of any?
They keep talking about putting one at Duke, and I believe one of our members, should I repeat this, said, we make good men better. We don't work miracles. But we'll see what we can do over in Durham.
We don't want to get into all that. I love the idea of putting them on college campuses.
It's a great
because,
place.
yeah, you've got young gentlemen
Right.
there who are academic by nature. By
They're in the middle of it.
Yeah, they're in the middle of it, and they're
They're looking for something.
Right.
I think they
Maybe
are.
not a fraternity,
And,
maybe not athletics.
So I'm an air conditioned man by trade, but I think that we need to look to our academic world, and everything's about balance, right? So we were talking about this before we shot the show. There's nothing wrong with having guys of the trades like me, but we seem to have lost the professional men, the lawyers, the mayors, the academics of the world. They seem to not be joining the fraternity in the numbers that they used to. And I think that trend is going to turn around just by nature of the fact that nature abhors a vacuum, and I think it's just our natural course of action to get back to that. But one way that we can help facilitate that is to present lodges that will be appealing to those kinds of guys.
Right.
And those kinds of guys are at colleges.
Right. Well, and I think too, you've got, and I know we focus on this at state, and they talk about it at Look Silver Talks, but of those, not everyone goes on to be a professor, but those men that have matriculated through a higher education system, to be able to come back, it's just as exciting for these men to come back and potentially serve as a mentor to some of these younger men, to these students. Right. That's very fulfilling. I mean, and again, you get that relationship back to the university, to that excitement about learning new things. And yeah, the excitement around it's going to attract all sorts of good men.
It does.
And I
it feeds
think
on
that
itself.
I sort of say, not that we're trying to turn masonry into a machine by any means, or a recruiting mechanism, but I mean, I see lodges on university and college campuses as being highly sought after when the word gets out.
Right.
I mean, really, because I know when I was in college, there was a lot of guys that we were interested in fraternities. We might not necessarily, want the fraternity life, and they're looking for that mystery and something more.
And you've got guys like Will Town and Dr. Brantley. Will's moved now, but
Yeah.
and Dr. Brantley that are just this world of knowledge that I just wonder if in some of their regular Blue Lodges, if there just weren't that many guys that were interested in the treasures that they hold in their brain. I just feel that may have been the case at some points in their career. Ooh. All right, we're going off the rail here, but certainly by being having a lodge that's full of academics, that gives an avenue for them to share their wealth of knowledge, maybe in a way that they wouldn't in a regular Blue Lodge. How's that?
Right.
Yeah,
But I'll dance around that as easy as I can
absolutely.
coming right out and saying, there's nothing wrong with a lodge full of rednecks, but it's nice to have guys that to have guys that are going to be the people from the academic world. All right, we're going to leave that one alone.
No, but you're right. But too, we need all good men. But when you're at a university, you're at such a good place to find members that are wanting to be engaged. And the thing is, they're going to move away. I mean, we know that at State. We had 3 graduate this year, and they're going to go out. But they're going to take that enthusiasm with them and introduce it elsewhere. And that's the whole purpose of the university system anyway.
But then they're going to come back on all the occasions.
Exactly.
That's a good point. That's the point of the
they're gonna
university
carry the
system.
light
I
forward.
like that.
And there's so many programs, it's just exciting listening about this lodge because you see so many opportunities that you could infuse into the campus. Your guys could give really cool tours of different parts of campus that are not covered on like the freshman tour, of course, but to businessmen that are coming into the area. Stuff to talk about, not just the Freemasonry, but everything and how it touched state
Right.
in the campus.
Right.
Well, that would be a super cool tour.
I love this idea. I think that the Grand Lodge should push this idea and push for more
Collegiate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. So the kind of the esoteric guys have their home in the TO lodges, and we have two, and there's rumblings of a third. The academic world could have its home in these affinity lodges, and I think that we should continue to push both of those.
Well, too, and that follows the theme, I think, from Grandmaster Caldwell's year, and Rick Carter, I think, talked a lot about it, but, the move to find your quarry. It's your masonry, kind of, you talked about this on the last podcast, but, what interests you, where do you want to run with it, what do you want to do with it? Find your own quarry and mine it for all it's worth.
Right. And I know the Grand Lodge doesn't push for any kind of lodges. They let those grow organically, but they certainly can, with a wink and a nod here and there, dropping some hints or talking about it at district meetings or whatever, how much we like what's going on with the affinity lodges. It just gives it a legitimacy to maybe continue to grow it.
Yeah.
And I think they're all doing that. I hope it continues to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see the collegiate thing being taken on by a new incoming master, Grand Master. I mean, that would be a really good thing to take on and just say, hey, and I know that we don't recruit, but still, I still see some of the collegiate lodges filling some voids with numbers.
Absolutely.
And good numbers.
Right.
Hey, what if you had a TO collegiate lodge? What?
As everyone's head at the table explodes there.
They're taking over. Well, good. Well, I hope it keeps on trucking, Jonathan. Best of luck to you guys at State College Lodge. I'm sure you have a website that you can find in Lux Libertas. Lux Libertas is going to meet 4 times a year?
Thus far, I think they're, and I'm not in their planning, but at the moment, they're going to meet, I think, quarterly, and they're discussing whether or not they want to meet more often. They may meet 6 times a year. I honestly don't know. I think their next meeting is August 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
In State College Lodge, when do y'all meet?
We meet on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. We meet
So you're monthly?
Right.
Huh,
Usually
okay.
have degree work on emergence. Always
Cool.
have an education program on there.
Now, one more question, and I know we got to move on to something else. You guys are going to meet on a Wednesday. What if there are special events that are going on campus to where you think that you could pull in alumni that are coming in?
Homecoming.
Exactly, homecoming, different things like that.
Yeah, we do that.
Okay.
That's for anyone that needs it. That's just a call up to the Grand Lodge for a dispensation. If you need a special communication, we've talked about that it's a great time to be able to network with the
Awesome.
alumni. And that's partly why we do we really try to do our degree work on weekends, because we do pull alumni from across the state and want them to be able to participate when they can. We know they can't be there always at a regular meeting, but give them that opportunity to participate on the weekend if we plan ahead.
Very cool. Anything coming up in the amendments this year you want to talk about? Anything really challenging? The only one I remember from them reading it out was making your initiation fee 3 times your dues, maybe? Do I remember that right?
Right. I don't have it in front of me, but the proposal to make the initiation fee 3 times the dues.
That'll never fly, but I think a lot of times they'll fly something like that by just to to make a point.
Well, and that's part of it. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if it happened. I know there's some think that would get too expensive in places, but if nothing else, to make a point, to make the biggest thing is to make the guys aware. And I realized this when we formed State College was, what does it cost to administer your lodge? And we had to sit down and we made a spreadsheet of our expenses, and we were our initiation fee and our dues were pretty low. They were on par with most lodges, $100, $125. We realized that wasn't going to cut it. So again, if nothing else, we hope it's going to make lodges think, reevaluate their finances. Are you solvent? Is this keeping you afloat? You're able to pay your bills.
You ever been to a Grand Secretary's Conference?
My first one actually this year.
What do they do at those things?
I can't tell you.
Is that separate from that's separate from the Grand Masters Conference?
They meet at the same time.
Oh, so it happens at the same time.
And they wander back and forth, and the programs are staggered.
So it's not 2 things. It's not Grand Masters Conference in
It is 2
June and it's Grand Secretary's Conference in November.
It's 2
the
separate
same
organizations, but they meet at the same time.
Oh, I didn't.
And the Grand Officers, tend to go up together. And, talk about what's going on in the other. Several of the Grand Officers came to the Secretary's Conference. Walt and I wandered into the Grand Masters Conference on occasion to hear what they were talking about.
How was it?
It was a lot of fun. It was very enjoyable. I mean, the Grand Masters tended to talk about themes and trends and where Masonry is going and how are we developing the craft and what is it doing in our communities. They tended to have more broader themes. You get into the Secretary's Conference and you tend to focus a little more on the minutia of administering. What's everybody charging? How are you administering your homes? And not that they don't talk about that necessarily in the Grand Masters, but you get into more of the detail. What kind of database do you have? How are members using it? Is it working for you?
So at the Grand Masters side, I mean, who all goes to that thing? Obviously, Grand Masters and Grand Secretaries and Assistant Grand Secretaries. I mean, do the deputies go?
The deputies and I think our wardens both went this year.
Okay.
And again, Grand Masters is really kind of a training exercise too for the line officers upcoming, see what's going on nationally. Again, it's a really good place to just interact, make friendships. Again, the biggest thing on our fraternity, and this goes back to the Revolution and committees on correspondence, is just being able to keep in touch with people, making a friendship. We've got this problem here. What are you doing there? Just helping each other out.
Probably harder when everybody's got a progressive line, and unlike the Prince Hall guys where they have Toby's been there for 15 years or however long he's been there.
And that's why so many, and not all of them, but I know at least our North Carolina does a fantastic job in making its progressive line an educational tool. I mean, you learn. The guy's not just there in line. And I don't know if the folks listening know that, but as you go through, you get these lessons. You're involved in these committees, more and more as you come up. And on the meetings, what's going on. And again, to be able to interact with these, other officers in other states just really means a lot. I mean, again, you get to bounce ideas off of them, see what works in some places, share your ideas, maybe it doesn't work there. It's just an excellent educational tool. And Grand Secretaries is the same way.
So are you sitting there and, some really progressive state is talking about all the really cool things they're doing, and then is there like some grumpy old state, like a grumpy old past master sitting over there on the sideline going, not for us.
Well, yeah, and that happened. And
I'm sure it does.
The best example, and I think it's remarkable how the Grand Lodge of California operates. That is a fantastic jurisdiction, and not to all jurisdictions are great, but California has done a wonderful job of integrating Masonry into its community. They work really hard to interact with their local school system. They laid the cornerstones for their school buildings in the neighborhood. We haven't done that in years. I don't think many states have done that in years.
Wow.
They have this huge, and again, California is a huge state. I know that they've got money, but they've got this huge foundation. They work with the University of California. They give out research grants. I mean, they are wrapped up in so many aspects of
Oklahoma does it too.
Not just charity, but just again, kind of bringing light to the community, being able to share those resources, yes. And they've really done an excellent job of perfecting, I think, what we're always working toward perfection, but really showing you what Masonry can do.
You can tell from the California's marketing also that they're very inclusive.
Yes.
And all the California Masons that I've met have been top-notch guys. Of course, they're like us. They got good guys and bad guys. We all do. So because we're made up of humans, but still, I love California stuff.
So in this meeting, how do we, not to lose your job, how do we rank? Like, how do we stack up against some of these other states? I mean, as far as what we're doing and what we're about.
We're on the platform, baby. We're on the metal platform.
Yes, North Carolina's really at the forefront. I mean, we have an excellent line, and we have for 2 centuries. There are very few hiccups in our leadership, and it really shows as far as how the line officers are educated on the web, but also just being able to interact with the membership of knowing what Masonry is. I mean, they've been very open-minded, are willing to try ideas. Sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. I mean, there are other jurisdictions where grand jurisdiction is they read the minutes of the grand jurisdiction, and they close and go home, and that's really all business. I mean,
and that's what I think that some of our Masons across the state fail to realize is just how good we have it as a state.
We really do. It's not something I realized until I started interacting more with the office, and of course then, fortunately, was hired. But we really, when you get out and start to travel and see how other states and territories and countries operate, we have much to be proud of in North Carolina.
We're going to keep pressing, too. I got all caught up in that.
Are we done?
So no. So in addition to the Grand Masters, that's a national conference, right?
Right.
Now there's a World Grand Masters conference that's every other year, maybe.
There's a world conference. I think the world conference is every 18 months.
Right, and then there's like regional conferences. There's a
Right.
Northeast and a Southeast and a I don't know what all else there is.
Right. And again, it's
Well, which one are we in?
we're in the Northeast Conference, which is South Carolina all the way up to Maine.
South Carolina's in the Northeast Conference,
North Carolina
Yeah.
up to Maine is all Northeast Conference.
right?
Yeah, there's a Southeast Conference, there's a Midwest, I think you've got a Western Conference, it's California and the Pacific States. They've got them up in Canada.
So those entities like, I mean, how do you decide which one you go in? Is there like a geographical territory
They
you
tend
fall
to,
into?
they tend to follow geography, but sometimes too, it's just, the states closest to each other tend to operate similarly. And again, it's where you find some of the commonality. So, we have a very close heritage with Virginia. So, I mean, that kind of drew us, I think, into the Northeast Conference and also into Pennsylvania. That's where a lot of our.
So we've
labs
always
are.
been in the Northeast Conference.
Well, we had been in the
All right, we'll
Southeast
just let all
Conference.
that ride. I was leading you down a path that I know you don't want to go to. I am glad that we're in the Northeast Conference. Have you been to one?
I have not been to one. There's going to be one in July, but
Yeah.
I'm going to sit this one out. I'll aim for the next.
Well, tell them I'll go in your place.
I'll let Walt know.
He's going to need rights to moorage before he goes there.
All right, we talked about that. We're getting pretty close on time. I have it in my mind. Have you been to this DDGM training that they started a couple years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a good program.
I think I could do it better. I mean, I love it. I love the idea that they're doing it. I love that they're going to the three entities.
And there it is.
So it's a new program, right? It's a new
There's
program.
always room for refinement.
It's been, what, they did it 2 years, right?
It's 2 or 3 years.
Two or three years
Yeah.
they've been doing it. Just, I think that we put together such a great team on Davie Academy as far as the way that we're going to handle the logistics of signing up and tracking and reporting on and record keeping and organizing the programs. Now we've got to get our sea legs under us. Everything's good in theory until you start working it. But I really love the program that Ken Weichel and I have put together, or mainly Ken, about how to track all that stuff, the administrative side of it. And I just think we could help them make that an easier process than it been. And I think they need a standard course of study. If you're going to be a DDGM or a DDGL, you ought to get the same message there ought to be a
Uniformed.
Yep, there ought to be a curriculum. And here's what here's what we're going to do.
I like that. And
So can I be in charge of it next year?
I'll let Walt know that you're interested.
Okay. Are you taking notes on all this stuff you're going to tell Walt?
It may.
Do you need to borrow a piece of paper?
They're mental notes.
I got my recorder on. We're good.
Okay.
But it is a good program, and yeah, there are refinements that can be made. And
Did you listen to us talk about Lodge Rescue? On one of the
About
earlier episodes, Lodge Rescue?
yes,
What do you think about Lodge Rescue? Not an official opinion, just what's your general sense
I like
of
it.
if that thing
I like
is
it.
doable or not?
it's doable. Yeah.
You think it could be a TV show? You think we could get viewers? And,
Yeah, you could make it into a game show. Big
John
Brother.
Taffer. Yelling and screaming, wailing and gnashing of teeth.
But yeah, I mean, and it's a tool. I mean, sometimes lodges need help, and it's a good direct way. Sometimes you gotta lay it out.
We got a ton of good feedback on that.
Yeah.
a lot.
That and the talk about the committees last time. Those are the two big things we've done lately that really got a lot of feedback.
Well, you didn't disappear between that meeting and this, so I
Yeah,
think
we're
you're
still,
okay.
we're still above ground.
You're here, right?
Still sucking air,
I'm
so
from
we're
Grand Lodge,
okay.
and I'm here to help.
Dr. Berman, we've talked about him a lot on the show. Dr. Berman is going to write a book about North Carolina.
I'm looking forward to that.
I am, too.
Have you got any more detail on what he's going to cover?
No.
I'm going to pick his brain big time when he gets here in September. I'm looking forward to that.
We're going to try and interview him, too. And I know,
Good.
I'm assuming he's going to speak at annual communication.
I assume he is, yes. He's coming.
Man, I'm really super pumped about that. Because did you read Loyalists and Malcontents yet?
I haven't read that.
Dude, put that on your bedside.
Okay.
And it won't take long, but it's really, really good. Really good. Does anybody ever call the Grand Lodge bitching and complaining about stuff?
Oh,
That's why he was running late.
Just for the record, let me ask a theoretical question.
sure.
If I got mad at Riley, should my first call be to the Grand Lodge?
No.
Well, who should I call? If my Grand Master couldn't, or my Blue Lodge Master couldn't resolve it, how does the chain of command work here?
You should.
Call Ben Wallace.
Call Lodge Rescue?
That's right. What's your number? Yeah, call Lodge Rescue.
Well,
So the first, if you got a problem in Lodge, yeah, the first place to go, try and resolve it yourself. Obviously, that hasn't worked. So you take it to the master, have that discussion. If that's your problem, you need to take it to the DDGM. It's best to go up through the chain of command, and not because, at Grand Lodge we just don't want to hear it, but because you need to have tried every avenue to work it out before it gets to Grand Lodge. It's kind of like the principal's office. You don't want to wind up there immediately. You talk to the teacher, see if you can't work it out beforehand. It's best if it, and I don't mean that we can't help, but it's best if it can be worked out on its own beforehand.
So what you're saying is the Grand Lodge is there to help you, but not to take care of every little problem that you have.
But we can't.
But you can give guidance without talking to the principal
But
first. I mean, and that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I think that's what you're getting at. You're saying that if it's something that you have a question about, they could call you or Walt. You guys can kind of point them in the right direction.
And that happens, and we'll say, you really need to take this back to your master, or you take this to your DDGM, have a talk with him. We have some excellent DDGMs that are really good to just sit down and they'll help you hash it out if you got an issue. You've also, depending on what the nature is, you've got committees on reference. And again, not to put you off from calling the office, but the steps up to the office are part of the Grand Lodge. I mean, all these deputies and of course the master of the deputies, I mean, it's a part of the Grand Lodge system. It's part of the hierarchy of how we operate.
So go through your chain of command.
It would be best.
That was me throwing you a softball, Jonathan.
And then also that we've had several people contact the Speakers Bureau wanting to know if people could come out, and talk about maybe an issue that they're having. If there is a presenter that has a topic that would focus on maybe a situation that's going on in the lodge.
Well, that's
and we've had some people reach out for that.
And maybe we'll give a shout out to the Speakers Bureau. Has been an excellent program, and I mean you all administer it, but as far as the feedback we get up to the office, it's truly been a fantastic program.
We just need more speakers.
I think you need a mediator on that.
Yeah,
And that would even be beneficial. I mean,
Speakers Bureau really has been good. Tony Rathbone, big shout out to
Yes,
him.
yes.
He and Jay Frechette administer that thing, and they're doing wonderful at it. We need more speakers in the east and in the west. We got plenty in the middle of the state, especially in the east. I don't have many down there. So if you want to be a speaker, all you got to do is drop me an email, Tony Rathbone, call Jonathan. He'll hook you up with us at the Grand Lodge office.
And all these guys are on Facebook. Ben's got their contact information. You
Yeah.
can shoot us an email on our Facebook page, website.
Yep. So use that all you can. Does the Grand Lodge have a reference committee? Is there a Grand Lodge reference committee?
well, when it gets there, usually your reference committee becomes your trial commission. So again,
Have you sat through a Masonic trial?
I have. I'm the.
I bet that's uncomfortable.
It can be awkward at times. I'm the secretary for the trials for Judge Advocate Jimmy Stevens. So I'll record all those and make the official record, and then we file them under lock and key in Grand Lodge.
Does it have the feel of like being in a courtroom?
It can. It's usually,
Do they call witnesses? And,
they can. They
and
have.
cross examination?
Yeah, I mean, you're given every opportunity, should you be on the end of having Masonic charges filed, you're given every opportunity to explain yourself. Again, innocent until proven guilty. Come tell us your side of the story. And again, usually this is where the system's just broken down, where there has not been enough mediation, or it's just one of those automatic outs. So, it comes up, we're going to have.
Like if you get a felony.
Right.
If you get a felony, you're out.
Yeah, then you just get a letter.
Don't even go to the trial.
Unless you request it, yeah.
And if you're requesting to go to the trial, and show them your thing with the F on it, and then they're like, sorry, dude, you're out. I know you have a good explanation.
But it is interesting because you can have, you'll have 3 tribunal judges, and it's not like a court.
Are they all lawyers?
No.
All the judges?
No.
They're just dudes?
They are typically well-versed in Masonic jurisprudence and law, but not necessarily attorneys. They sometimes are in law enforcement, but not always.
Interesting. I hope I never have to be involved
No.
in one of those. We don't want no part of that.
They tend to be pretty unfortunate when they get to the office.
How many crazy, just plumb crazy UFO tinfoil hat wearing dudes do you have call the office? Not Masons, just your run of the mill knucklehead.
We get some interesting. I have an email.
Conspiracy theorist.
I have an email file where I send a lot of my requests that come through the website, and sometimes I'll take notes when I get a call. I think Walt enjoyed the sport of watching me kind of stutter and stumble over myself for about half an hour before he said, "All right, you need to."
You like Andy Potts on Ghostbusters? Got one!
We get a few of those. We get the ley lines are acting up again, or my
Well, they won't have any.
the voices have gotten louder. We get a few of those.
What's like the craziest one you've ever got?
There's one we get on repeat that the voices and the frequencies are really messing with his daily life, and if we can turn those off and talk to the federal government, he'd be appreciative.
Nice.
Yep.
Do you get a lot of you Masons are running the world kind of stuff?
That's exactly what I was getting ready to ask.
Anybody call to complain about Brexit?
I really, I knew that'd come up. I don't know that I've really gotten any complaints. It's usually the ones that call have a sincere interest, and they have some sort of Da Vinci Code theory of how things operate. That's typically what I get. Usually if they're angry with us, I don't know if you've ever been by, but the sign got paintballed not terribly long ago in the front of the Grand Lodge, and there's a few bullet holes in the front.
That was me and you playing paintball in the front yard. Did you miss?
I guess
Hit the
so.
sign?
I didn't realize it.
Damn it.
So usually they don't take the time to talk to us. They just they throw the metal or whatever and run. Yeah.
Can you pick them out? How deep into the conversation does it take you to pick out like a conspiracy theorist? Are you getting better at it? Are you honing your skills?
I'm getting better at it. It took a while to begin with. It took a few that I really had to work through. I had one not terribly long ago, and I probably got 7 minutes into the conversation, because again, we're customer service. The members call up, we're going to do everything we can to take care of your problem or whatever you need. It took me about 7-10 minutes to realize this guy was not a member. He wasn't even from North Carolina. And I can't remember what he said, something about wanting to know what was in the 3rd degree, and I said, "Where are you a member?" "Oh, I'm not." It's like, okay, well, what can I help you with quickly?
That's why.
Not that we don't want to talk to the public, but
If you don't know the secret code, I can't tell you.
that was one of those circles within the circles that I just wasn't privy to. So.
Of course. You want to talk about Arkansas?
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
Next.
Next.
We, and throughout the Southeastern Company, you talk about things that pop up. And this is North Carolina Grand Lodge, and this has come up a lot lately, and it's best to let other jurisdictions try and work out their problems. Again, it's not one of those you want to run to the Grand Masters Conference and announce what's happened. States will handle their own business. It usually works itself out.
Not fast enough for me.
We support an amicable resolution. Hope everyone is treated fairly, but
well, you've got to.
I mean,
the Grandmaster told me when all that was going on, we were going into a podcast, and I usually hit him up a day or two before and see if there's anything he wants me to cover or not cover. We make our own decisions here, but I seek guidance from people that are smarter than me. And he knew I was going to talk about this, and he said, don't forget that we border some of those states that have some of those issues, and we're a safe refuge for some of those guys. Some of those guys are members over here, come to lodge over here, and you can't save the sinners if you don't get in there amongst them.
Right.
So the way to do that is be an example and love them, not bash them in the nose like I want to do all the time.
It's best to be
Fortunately.
welcoming, and again, we have so many members that do cross the border from all across the country, from every state, no matter what's going on in what state. You know, it's best to be a place where those members can come and find camaraderie amongst the brethren.
All right, I got a few things from the announcements that we're going to make last today, but before we do, here's my last big question to you, Jonathan. Here's the big pitch. When are we going to reconstitute the Lodge of Research?
Let me know when you want to get it together.
So you're saying it's doable? It can be done?
If you want to, you know, yeah, it's doable. I mean, the biggest
The Grand Lodge wouldn't be opposed to it?
No. I mean, you're not going to get the old number back. But if you want to constitute a lodge of men that want to put together, you know, a lodge can be whatever you want it to be. I mean, so if you want to make it, I mean, some of the Sophia, don't you have an educational process?
Yes.
That you,
Yep.
Very similar. I mean, it depends on what you want to focus on. So if you want to create a lodge where it's, you know, you want your members to present papers, you can do that.
How many full copies of the No Color series do you have it?
Full copies.
Yeah. What were there, 7 of them? 8?
I think there's 11 volumes, 11 or 12 volumes. There's 11 or 12 years. I think we've got 2 full sets.
I wonder how many are.
They're both in vaults.
I wonder how many are in existence. I saw a full set the other night, last Friday night.
Oh, yes.
After Lodge,
I'm
I
sure
went and
you
saw a
did.
full
Yeah,
set.
I've seen that one too.
It's nice. That's a nice library.
We're talking about a reprint of that potentially. We're seeing what the details of that could be.
Well, can you do the Parmore book too, Launching the Craft at the same time?
I actually have a Paramore book in my bag. We are going over the edits to reprint that.
Oh, wonderful.
There's a couple things to change in it. We're going to have to reshoot some of the photos, but the print shop at Oxford has already laid out the pages, and there's a couple, like I said, couple of edits to make, and just going to have to reshoot some photos. But that is Walt was after me last week to go and get my edits finished so we could get that up to the print shop and printed.
Well, that's good news.
Yep.
What else are we going to reprint? If we're talking about reprinting the No Color series and Launching the Craft, what else you got in?
Well, we're talking about doing the early proceedings. I'm really interested in the proceedings. Now, I know some people think those are the driest thing you could ever read. There's some really good information in the early historical, some good esoteric, some good material on toleration amongst men in those early proceedings that were not published. And I've been working slowly to try and transcribe some of those. I think I'm going to have to outsource some of that to some guys that have a little more free time. And Walt and I have talked about, again, trying to do a print on demand. Don't really want the overhead, but to print out have available a set of the proceedings to purchase.
Do you have anything, I'm sure you do, on our delegation that we sent to the 43 Baltimore Convention?
I have a little bit.
What do they do, come back and make a report?
They did it for several years. 43, Baltimore Convention 1843, right. Which is when everybody shifted down to opening lodge on shifted up to opening lodge on the 3rd degree, had been rolling around for about 20, 30 years. So it had come back several times on advisement, and it slowly worked into the ritual and all. 1840, I think 1844, 45, we accepted it. And again, that was really in relationship to the Morgan Affair in 1827, trying to keep out eavesdroppers, or Morgan was not a Mason, but convinced his way into a lodge, learned the secrets, and threatened to publish them. At least that's part of one of the stories.
Sure wish we'd turn that one back to the 1st degree. That's one of Randy Browning's pet peeves, and I think he's right. It could be done. It's just going to take a little bit of marketing and explaining of what it's all about. The guys bringing up an annual communication, the guys, they've read it on that piece of paper that y'all send out, but they don't really thought it through.
And that's one, and that it's not a bad idea. The biggest thing with that is often when the amendment comes up that it's being proposed, it unfortunately it never had a group to sit down and truly review what it would require per the code, because you can't pass it. You could, but it'd be in violation with so many different aspects of the code. So if we can get a group together, and I think it'd be a great idea, get a group together to review the code and see what kind of aspects it would touch. What part of Masonic law is this going to change? Because it's going to affect your membership, how your members attend, how you want to take in dues, what constitutes being a Master Mason. All of these things, all of these regulations that followed 1843, which we didn't really think of, if it can just be worked out. And I understand, I had a call, and I could be wrong, I think it was from a gentleman in Wyoming who was working on that. I could be misspeaking. I think it was on Wyoming, but he he was working on all the details to work that out for his Grand Lodge, so that they could have a good, solid discussion on its benefits and whether or not they wanted to reinstitute that practice.
Good.
So people are working on it, and it's becoming a trend across the country. So
Yeah.
it's there.
I'd like to see us go back to it. I didn't have the energy to commit to it this year, but maybe someday we'll get around to trying to change that. I'll tell you something I don't like about annual communication. I feel like so you guys give us plenty of advance notice on what the amendments are going to be. You have them out 3 or 4 months in advance, I guess. And, me and Riley and Brown and the circles that I run in, we talk about some of the stuff that interests us, a fair amount, We look stuff up in the code. We think about the repercussions of how this or that will work. But most guys don't do that, right? They may have heard it read one time. They show up at annual communication. We're getting ready to vote on it. It says, here's the amendment, da-da-da-da-da-da, legalese, blah, blah, blah. And the committee recommends that we do it. That's it. I just feel like y'all ought to, one way or the other, either say why the committee thinks we ought to do it. Not a 30-minute dissertation, but
Right.
take 5 minutes and explain the repercussions of both sides. Either that or have a guy argue both sides or something. It just seems like you just throw it out there and say, okay, here it is, take it or leave it. And I feel like because the guys don't do their own research, a little more explanation would be in order.
Well, that's true, and that wouldn't hurt. And I don't know, what kind of time requirement. Like you said, you don't want to get into a 30-minute dissertation. But again, being the democratic process that it is, you have the guys that come down to the floor that discuss it, and you hope they've read up on what's coming.
But when the guys come down to discuss it, it seems like if you have a good idea, I wish I could think of an example, but I can't. But if you have a good idea, and some guy comes to the floor that just doesn't understand what it's really talking about,
Right.
and he says something about what alcohol in the lodges.
Yeah, that's
now,
what I say.
so everybody has their own opinion on that, right? But you've always got the guy that trots down there and says, my daddy was an alcoholic, and he drank himself to death, and if we had
can't
liquor
have
in
that
the
in the
lodges, everybody'd be a bunch of drunks. Just not understanding it. It is. If you aren't going to explain it up front, can the Grand Lodge, or not the Grand Lodge, can whoever's proposing that amendment at least be prepared to give a well thought out counter argument? Because then nobody goes up there to refute the guys, and then the thing fails because nobody went up there and gave a well thought out argument. Can't we say, Riley, if some knucklehead comes up there and doesn't understand what this is talking about and just refutes it just because he doesn't understand it, you go up and you're our spokesman. You can talk in front of people. You understand all the sides of the issue. You go up there and be the guy that explains. Okay, look, brother, I understand your point.
The moderator.
Here is
Right.
Y'all don't ever have a guy lined up to do that.
Well, no, we encourage the lodge that makes the proposed amendment. We encourage them. You've proposed this. It'd be good. It'd be best if you had someone
Defend it.
well spoken.
Well, that makes sense. That would be their place, not yours.
Right. So, but we tell them that when it's submitted, all the amendments that come in, do you have someone to speak to this? Can you make a good argument on this? Can you have someone up there that can explain it if it becomes a very emotional or heated debate?
Yeah.
And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're going to get misinformation. A lot of times emotion plays into it.
Yeah.
But
Maybe that could be a position that the Grand Line appoints
the grand arguer.
to take, because I think what you have is you have a lot of lodges that don't have someone that is good in public. They don't have a good presenter. They don't have somebody that would be good at defending. They would get emotional.
Right.
They can't just be up there, be neutral, tell the facts, defend the facts. But it could be a position that the Grand Line states and say, hey, you need to get with Ben Wallace. Here, you present him all the information that you want to post, and then anything that could come out of it. And then it would be Ben's job to know both sides of the coin.
Maybe that committee could do it. What's the committee that reviews those things and makes the recommendations?
Jurisprudence.
Yeah, maybe
or
jurisprudence
commission.
can have a guy.
And have one spokesman.
Have a spokesman for it. And they would need to, especially if you got one that's controversial, they ought to play out all the scenarios beforehand. Let's just have a Socratic discussion about this thing. All right, you be the counter guy, and I'm going to be the for guy, and let you come up with all the arguments against, and I'll come up with all the arguments for, so that you've kind of played out, what the guys are going to come up there and say. It just seems like they come up there and spout off some craziness, and then everybody sits around looking at each other, and then we vote, and it goes down. And a good idea goes down.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen every year. It happens.
And it would have to be somebody who's a people person. It couldn't be a lawyer.
Right.
Because then everybody, half the crowd would be like, what did he just say?
Every lawyer just tuned out.
What did he just say?
The Grandmaster's a lawyer.
He's the best one. Like,
And a damn good one.
and he's busy doing master stuff, grandmaster stuff.
This was an awesome show. I commend you.
Hey, we can cut this thing off 5 minutes ago, right?
All I was meaning was verbiage. Like, a lawyer would lose half the crowd.
All right, we're
Because they
about,
wouldn't
You need
understand.
a
about an hour and
storyteller.
15
A
minutes.
storyteller. This is everybody's friend.
Right. You need a storyteller.
One of our friends sent me some announcements to make. Said be sure and talk about Lux Libertas. Did that. Lynch Lodge. Steve Lynch has a wonderful little. It's not really a lodge. It's a little private museum in the back of his house. It's wonderful. He'll be glad to show it to you anytime. He had a great big breakfast the other morning. Had a whole bunch of guys there. Brown and I drug in really, really late, and there was like almost nobody left. Davie Academy, we're going to probably dedicate a whole show to that coming up soon. Wilkerson College Lodge Symposium was a great hit. Kevin Townley and Tim Hogan are spectacular speakers, and we also had the ritual competition. Went very good.
A lot of good feedback on that too.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That's a good program.
It was an Eagle Scout degree, hosted by the 38th District and Dunn's Rock Lodge on August 13th, 2016 at Camp Bud Sheely near Rutherfordton. It's a hard word to say, Rutherfordton. All Eagle Scouts on degree team for third degree. Eagle Scout is going to be raised. And there's also a Civil War battlefield degree October 15th in Averysboro near Dunn.
Well spoken.
Yeah. So, what does that mean, a Civil War battlefield degree? Is everybody going to dress up in Civil War? Is that Lodge of Research from Virginia going to do it?
I think I'm not
Some
sure
of our
who's
guys
gonna
gonna
take
dress
care of it,
up?
but it was going to be, in period dress. And
Can I go as a Yankee? Oh, no, I can't do that. My relatives had turned over in their graves. But can you go as a Yankee? No, you can't. Anybody got a
I
Yankee?
can go.
No, we're all Southern folk. Can we get some Yankees to come?
I'm sure there'll be a few there. Blue coats are cheap. Anyway.
And on that one, we're fixing to roll up out of here. Jonathan, we appreciate you coming. We appreciate everything you do at Grand Lodge. We appreciate
Absolutely.
everything that the Grand Secretary's office does for us. You never appreciate folks. All we do is complain about some entities, and the Grand Secretary's office is one of them. And they're just, they're a lot of times the first guy in front of you when you got a problem, and so they're the ones you get mad at. But y'all do tunnel work. Those of us that are in the know what good work you do, and everybody in that office, and tell them that we really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. That's your office, so you should go up there and see it. And Jonathan will make that happen. Jonathan, thank you for driving all the way down here in the country. We love you, and we appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
See you, brother.
Anytime.
And for the record, I was very gentle on you.
Well, the record, I appreciate it.
Let's drink a beer now.
Yeah. Then we'll have a real discussion. The meeting after the meeting.
The meeting after the meeting, the parking lot meeting.
Thank you for listening. And for more information and productions, please visit and like our Facebook page at 357 Productions or 357productions.net. You may also email us at 357productionsteam@gmail.com. Again, that is 357productionsteam@gmail.com. As always, tell people that you love them, and remember, we meet on the level and part on the square.